November 21st, 2022 Design Review Committee meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. The DRC is the Subcommittee of Historic Zoning. The meeting is informal and designed to guide applicants through the process of obtaining a Certificate of Appropriateness, or COA, for projects within the city's historic districts in light of the Historic District Design Guidelines. Applicant participation in DRC meetings is voluntary but highly recommended. Changes made or suggestions taken by the applicant based on discussions with the DRC are the applicant's choice, but the DRC makes no representation as to whether any changes or suggestions made during this meeting will be approved by the voting body, which is the Historic Zoning Commission. There are 8 items on this afternoon's agenda. When the item is called, please introduce yourself and generally describe your item in about 3 to 5 minutes, focusing on the specific points of the project that you want us to discuss. Having said all of that, the first item is discussion of alterations, installation of rooftop structure at 99 East Main Street, Suite 190, Sean Sullivan, applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As they're approaching, I do want to give a brief reminder. This item did come before the DRC a couple times before, originally to discuss the installation of a rooftop structure. There was feedback received. The applicant came forward and heard additional feedback. So after working with staff, they'd like to propose something in mind with those comments in mind, trying to streamline things. I'll let them explain that, but ultimately just wanted to remind you that that came forward, and we'll turn it over to Sean. We have Sean here. We have Mr. Ingram, the property owner, and then we have the potential tenant, Frank.
And hit that button there on your
Right.
green light will come on.
Thank you,
And
guys.
then you're live.
You hear me okay?
Yeah, great.
All right, great.
Thank you.
So yeah, as Amanda touched on, this is our 3rd time before the DRC. We're here tonight to discuss a structure for the rooftop of the restaurant. This is for the 3rd floor level where we have outdoor seating for the restaurant. And essentially what we're trying to get is just some cover on, over the bar area and the seating area. And I think the first 2 times we were here, we ran into some issues with how heavy this felt. There were some historic issues, and we've kind of, I think, gone back and forth a little bit trying to understand, how best we can approach this. Talking with Amanda for a couple of meetings, we came up with a couple new ideas. One's more of a revision of what we've been here before to submit, and the other one is a newer concept. So I don't know if we can go to the rendering of.
Sure. I just wanted to show this image so everyone could be refreshed on the building location. This is First Avenue and East Main Street, and then as you go, I guess, sort of northwest, you go across the Harpeth onto Franklin Road. The area that Sean's discussing is this area right here. So I'll go back to page 1.
Yeah, so and I think we had a couple renderings maybe to better illustrate. I don't know if you guys have it in front of you, but you're able to.
Yeah.
I mean the renderings. You guys have the imagery of.
They've seen everything that's on this plan.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
don't have anything in front of them right now, but they're seeing it here.
right. We had some exterior visuals, renderings. Oh,
Photograph, yeah.
It's all
okay.
here.
Yeah.
I'll start wherever you want to start.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at. That's fine. Just so I can explain what we got here. So, this is the alternate concept that we developed. This would be pretty much a steel tube structure with a glass roof structure above it. So, the idea with this is, essentially putting as minimal structure as we can to support, the roof structure above, and then with the glass roof, obviously that being transparent. It's views, you can see through it to the sky. The sight lines are better. It clearly reads a lot lighter than what we had originally, which was the pergola structure, which had mechanical louvers that could open and close. Obviously, this being all glass, it's a little bit more, see-through. So the idea there is that it's even more hidden and less visible, which was the primary concerns from our first 2 meetings. And we are showing the sort of pruned up landscaping that I think was received well at the other meetings. So we're still proposing that in both concepts. And then for the other concept, I think.
We'll just go through the images if you want to describe where they are.
Sure. So this is looking at the opposite corner. I guess where would
This
that
is
be? That would
looking
be
at
like
it
the south-
from maybe the bakehouse.
Yeah, the bakehouse. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
This
Then we cross the street,
This is from the Catholic Church property.
going down 99th now, right? 90s,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we keep just kind of keep going down. We wanted to give you, perspectives going all the way down the street so we could get every side.
This is the rear, as you're,
That's down First Avenue.
yes.
Yeah, this is First Avenue heading,
First
I guess,
heading
west,
toward
yeah.
Main and-
Yeah,
Yes.
northwest.
Square
It's weird because
north
it's a little
left.
bit angled, yeah. And this is going down Main Street now. This is about a half block. This is a full block. This is a view from the rooftop, so showing our seating concept, lighting, where the bar is, everything, which you could gather from the plan, but that's just a couple visuals. This is a bird's eye view to give you a better overall look of that patio structure, how it turns away from the corner and what we're trying to do. And then obviously you can see that it slopes down, so we're also trying to slope this down to make it, again, as least visible as possible. So that's essentially what you're seeing there. So this is the other concept. Again, this is the revision, which you guys might recognize from our previous ones. This is slightly different. What we did here is we talked to the manufacturer, and we were able to find a slimmer profile for this. So this is, what I mean by that is exactly what she's pointing out here.
how thick it is at the top.
7.5 inches. Before, I think we were closer to 10 or 11 inches. Doesn't seem like much, but it does make quite a difference, I think. We also lowered the brick columns just a touch. Again, this was a lot of study and interplay to see what we could do to make this really blend in as best as it could. So that's what we did here. And then the structure itself is more of a black color to match the window mullions on the existing building. So then same kind of shots as the other concept here. In fact, the exact same for comparison. So.
And we can certainly go through these as much as you need to and compare the different options. Option number one being the almost glass roof. Option number two being a modification of the previous discussion. As far as the design guidelines go, the recommendation would be that the rooftop appurtenances or modern features of any type on buildings should be put where they're not visible. So that was the guidance that was received or provided to you previously, and it would stand. I did work with the applicant because they did ask to get some information about what might be more amenable to the commission if it wanted to consider a deviation from those guidelines. And so the guidance I provided was a slimmer profile and something that might not be as commanding of one's eyesight. Like when you're driving down the road, it settles, it doesn't draw your attention. So I believe they have worked really hard to try to provide a couple of options to you on that. One thing I do want to mention, though, is that this is going through a build-out currently for the tenant as you would enter the building on the lower floor. And there was a comment provided by our zoning team and would stand here that there's not adequate parking provided for the outdoor seating. And so I don't know, we're still working through that, whether that would be compromised by adding the pergola or if the outdoor seating would be the same with or without the pergola. But that is something that the applicant would need to work through in order to be able to get a certificate of occupancy. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kathy.
My question kind of follows what Amanda was bringing up. What is the number of seats under the pergola?
The number of seats, let me pull up my plan here.
And the pergola is like L-shaped?
Yes, correct. It is an L shape. It's pretty much the same in both here. 1 second. So we've got.
And the long part of the L, like I'm looking at this image to the right side, is that along the river portion of the building?
Well, to answer your first question, we have 40 seats under the pergola.
Okay.
And the river side is actually
Mouse it.
on the other side. So
Oh.
this is the side that you would see. This long side is perpendicular to First Avenue,
Okay.
but it's this wall is at First Avenue.
Okay.
This wall is a chamfered wall that kind of addresses Harpeth, and then this wall is East Main Street.
Okay. Okay. The reason I asked that because I think the tapering part, the inside of the L is on the appropriate facade of the building, so it doesn't grab that view from that main street
Yep.
view.
Correct. That was the intention.
And did the height of this change any from the time you came before us?
It
A little bit?
The slimmer profile lowered it a little bit
Like
since it's not as. I mean, we're
6
talking
inches?
like 6 inches. So not
We'll
not
take
a
it.
ton.
We'll
Yeah,
take
and we're just. It's really about. I mean, we're at 9 feet to the underside, which is kind of the minimum for commercial standards. So we're kind of stuck there a little bit.
Okay.
The second option, the glass roof, that does taper down to 8.5 feet, since that's more gradual, so we get even lower at the ends than this pergola option.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a preference?
I have to pass that one to Frank. I don't know.
I don't really have a preference. I mean, to speak for myself and my partners, like our main objection to have is a structure to be able to utilize the patio as much as we can all year round. I know winters get pretty rough here, and it does rain quite a bit. So if we're able to use it a little bit more, at least 30% of the patio while it's raining or something like that, that's our main goal.
Yeah, I think to answer a little bit more on that, we don't have a preference. We're really here just to whatever your preference is. That's been our goal. It's just, whatever we can do. I mean, that's really what we're here for. So either one.
Anything else, Kathy?
No.
Susan?
From this vantage point, and it's the perspective, it appears to be, I think, more massive than what you mean it to be. There was another view where it didn't look so much, so.
Yeah, no one will actually see it quite from that when we go to the street view. Yeah.
Now, go back one or two, Amanda,
One more.
one more.
No, I know what you're thinking.
I don't know which way to go.
Yeah, well, it showed another view of
I'll just start at the beginning, which is
Okay,
this, and
sure.
but this is showing the glass one. And you
Right.
can tell me where you'd like me to stop. I'd be
Okay.
happy to do that.
Thank you. Okay, there was another, yeah, go back to that last one.
Glass top, bird's eye, one more.
One more. That one, yeah. So that one doesn't look as, I guess, it seems to have less mass to it than the other view did. And so I think that, from my standpoint, I need to actually see the material we're talking about.
Yeah, I can explain the material on this concept if you see it like material sample.
Yeah,
Oh, of course.
Hold it in my hand and see it in person.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so. This structure would be essentially a painted steel structure, and then so we could provide the paint sample with that, and then the glass roof system would be an aluminum material that would match. It would be pretty much a black, a version of a black color, but we could bring that to make sure. The idea is to match the storefront glass in the
Right,
building.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, and actually, bring the profile. What's the profile going to look like?
6 by 4.
A piece of
Yeah,
that metal.
sure. Yeah, we
And
could
then-
steel tube, sure.
Yeah. So, and then even, and is it glass ceiling? Is that what you're saying? Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct. It's a glass roof, right? So it's essentially it's almost like a glass wall, just sloped in at roof side. It's a special form of glass, obviously, but yeah. And then the structure itself is a steel tube, so it's rounded corners, a 4x6 profile for both the columns, and we might have a slight. I think the depth of the beams, so not the columns, but the beams, the horizontal beams would probably be about 8 inches in depth versus 6 inches for the columns.
So what I think that might be causing the difference between those two bird's eye views is that the previous one is a louvered top, so it feels heavier because you don't see the light through it.
Right.
Also, it has brick. The columns, the aluminum columns are wrapped in brick. And it goes more than halfway up. I think it's just a few inches
Right.
short of the roof structure. The thickness of this is comparable to the other one, or is it?
Yeah, the
lighter?
columns are actually even slimmer than the other one as well, because we're able to use steel versus the extruded aluminum, which is the pergola, so we can get much more done with a slimmer and smaller profile. So that's why that's a little different. And yeah, exactly. The brick wraparound columns definitely adds mass, and the idea there was sort of a mixed feedback from one of our reviews where, you know, the brick we thought might help tie it in a little bit with the building, but obviously that doesn't have to be there if it's making it read too heavy.
It does, I think it does make it read heavier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Those are all my comments, thank you.
Okay, Josh?
Yeah, first, thanks for all your work. I can tell you all did a lot with this, and I appreciate it. I think looking at the guidelines and the fact that here's where this continues to just be problematic for me, is we're not supposed to increase the visibility of that and the massing. And I think even with the glass, I'm looking at one of the slides, it's the coming down by the bank on the other side with the glass. Sorry, keep going. Yeah, it was that vantage point, but even with the glass panels at top, I mean, this building, I think, reads pretty big in downtown Franklin as is. It reads pretty massive, and all these options to me, I think, just continue to emphasize that what is the rooftop, like creating additional structure massing up there. So, and I'm curious about the glass as far to the point, Susan's point on the material. How will that be from a reflection standpoint? Is that going to cause any glare? And what type?
Sure. So the glare, because the slope is so minor that you won't be able to see the actual top side of the roof from any vantage point wherever you are. I mean, if we can actually, I don't know if we can get there.
One of the drawings shows it. I'm looking at it.
But
right
that-
here.
The bird's eye, that's just an architectural shot. There's no actual vantage point where you're gonna see that, I guess. Unless I got it wrong here. Let's see if we can. We got to keep going back. Back a couple more. So that shot's obviously, that's just a make-believe. We're just trying to show you the overall patio.
Yeah, I'm looking at a ground view.
Okay, let's
from
see.
Right.
So the underside of the glass will not be reflective because that, obviously, all the reflective part of the glass is going to be on the top film of the glass pane facing the sky to reflect, you know, the solar gains that are going onto the patio. So the inside, I guess, looking up at that glass roof will actually be more of a tint, less reflective because less solar gains coming through. So I guess the sun, you know, the way the sun's going to reflect off of that, I don't know how anybody on the ground would possibly see or get any glare, I guess, for that matter.
Okay.
And then, yeah, so this is that shot of that glass roof. So, I mean, in this shot,
Let's see. It's the one, I think, right before that.
yeah, the one that's more of a half block right here.
No, I'm looking at between the bank and the Catholic Church.
This one will just be the closer blocks. I think you had it, man, a four more up. So this one, right? One more.
Yeah.
And one more. This one? Okay. Okay. Yep, so this view, again, you're seeing the underside of that glass, so there won't be any reflective glare whatsoever. And we've worked really hard on this side. The reason why we have that structure right there is that we have the bar that we are trying to cover. You know, there's a lot of equipment there. It's very advantageous for Frank and his operation to have that portion covered. So we've trimmed this completely around where we can. I mean, the seating obviously is not as big of a deal on the outside, but as far as the actual bar equipment, we're trying really to cover that if we can. That's also the egress to the emergency stair as well, which I think is important to cover as well.
Okay. Josh, anything else?
No.
Brian?
My comments would tend towards the same as what Josh has brought up. One thing, it's not supported by the guidelines. I have to defer to the guidelines on this. And my second greatest concern is precedent. That as soon as if we were to approve this, we would have a lot of requests for rooftop spaces on many downtown buildings. And it's just not a place I'm ready to go.
I tend to agree with the other gentleman here. I usually by default just kind of side with the guidelines, and the point of us hearing it is to hear some circumstance that makes me think that we should break the rules. It's on, and I don't, you know, see the hardship or the necessity for breaking the rules here. And again, the precedent thing is an important one. We judge each project based on its own merits, and to date, I just haven't seen where there's some type of hardship that you have to have this, against what the guidelines say. So.
Okay, thank you. I can't add anything to what they've already said.
Okay, so the recap, I would like to be more specific to the applicant. I've heard there's 2/3 view here from the commission. I've heard directly from 3 that they would not support. And Jim, I don't know if your comment is specific to that or not. The other comments I've received is to provide more materials so that you can actually feel and see and understand how that material looks, so you can imagine it up on the roof. And more the same from you, Ms. Worthington,
I
correct?
think precedence is what I've heard the biggest concern, and it would be for me too. And we've had 2 or 3 previous requests for something similar on other buildings, and we've said no. And I think that's the biggest concern. And this already, I think somebody has said this already is a striking building coming into downtown Franklin or leaving downtown Franklin. So I think if something goes on that roof, then we've got, it just adds more mass.
Well, thank you for stating that. And I know that Kathy has an additional comment. I did want to state, just for the record, that the applicant will still be invited to use the
absolutely.
rooftop. It's just not necessarily with the additional structure.
Kathy's got another comment.
Since we brought up the number of seats under the pergola, and you mentioned part of the intent was to cover the expensive bar equipment, can this rooftop thing protect the equipment and not provide, thereby making it smaller and thereby not really covering the space for people? So it really miniaturizes and does its job to cover the bar equipment, protect the bar equipment from the weather, as opposed to trying to provide 40 seats underneath it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's something we can discuss, as we review your comments, and, that's a decision that, Frank will have to make here, but we'll look into that.
Okay, anything else?
I guess I'd just add on, I'm not opposed to there being something up there. I think for me, it's the visibility from the street view.
Okay, anything else? Okay, we're done then. Thank you. All right, next item is discussion of alterations, masonry restoration, and parcel replacement at 432 to 438 Main Street. Karen Cochran, applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the applicant comes forward, I do want to open by saying I've been working with the applicant, who's the owner of the building, Ms. Cochran, on discussing this project over the last several months. She is delighted to share that she has received a TDEC grant in order to help facilitate this project, which is really, really exciting. It does have a lot of moving parts, and because of where it is and trying to repoint a building that's at one of the most major intersections downtown can be challenging in and of itself. So I just offered that we can pass out anything if needed, but they've seen this. So I invited Ms. Cochran to come in and have an initial conversation to let you know what the issue is that she's seeking to address, and to get your feedback on how she should move forward with addressing some inherent issues with replacing glazed brick. So I'll turn it over to you, Karen. Just make sure you hit that button, please.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Amanda. Did you all say that?
We have seen it. We have
Seen the
have
slideshow?
had
Okay.
access to those. We just don't
Perfect.
have them in front of us.
I
Some of us
will
don't, anyway.
Pass these, or just some pictures that I wanted up close and personal sometimes is a good thing. And this is one of the glazed brick samples. Don't worry, it's not.
Thank you.
And I have these other boards too.
You
Fine.
just sit these here and we'll consult
Yeah.
them as needed.
Okay, so back in the fall of last year, I approached Centric Architecture that has done some projects for Franklin, and his name is James Thomason. And he came in and brought in some of his consultants and to do an assessment of the facade of the Five Points building. Because the building was purchased in '84, and the work started in '85, but I took over ownership of it in 1985. And the glazed brick was really in pretty good condition, but over the last years, with the amount of freezing and rain and things, and just the general life of glazed brick, you have an iconic, building right in the heart of downtown that is beginning to pop and crack, and you saw the bricks for yourself. So, and when I had a really well-known mason with Wasco Masonry Company, Harry Smith owns it, he came out as well and did an assessment, and he said, this is kind of typical of what happens with old glazed brick, that the mortar can go out. And so what he is, he's done also a full assessment of the building. You all may have seen in this wonderful old guidebook, you just find the front of Five Points is usually on a lot of postcards and things like that. So it is important. It's important that I get it right. And do this facade restoration the way it needs to be. Having said that, let me just read, if I could, very brief description. The proposed project will repoint the mortar joints as needed and repair and replace the brick as needed with new glazed white and green to match the original as closely as possible. And that's what I want us to be able to talk about a little bit. This work will be completed in a manner to minimize damage of the existing glazed brick. Sections which have pulled away from the building will be removed and rebuilt with the existing brick and compatible mortar. The final result will be repairs and repointing which maintain the building's original appearance. No other work is proposed for the building under the scope of this project.
So to help summarize for Ms.
Yeah.
Cochran, there's a couple things going on with the building. It was evaluated by Jim Thompson's team from Centric, and then also Wasco, which is a phenomenal masonry restoration group. The analysis from my recollection is that the wall, the parapet wall, is pulling away from the building to some degree, so some of that needs to be addressed. And then further, there are lots of places where the glazed brick needs to be just repointed, but also through that, there are places on the brick itself where you can see all the glazings removed. And there's not a way to really fix that on a single brick. And then as you go further, you can see this is a view from top down looking at the ledge. So I'll go back to page 2 here. You can see this ledge. Let me use my hand here. The ledge here, that's right outside of the second floor windows. If you go back to this image, you can see there's, because of the way the water is hitting it, all the mortar is disappearing there. And then this is another image where you can see that. This black is the awning below. And then you can see it from a different angle here. So what the plan recommends is to replace all of the green glazed brick, correct?
Well, this is what I would like to talk to this group about.
Okay.
I wanted to get their thoughts on that. 'Cause
Okay.
that's a big deal
It is.
on an old building.
And then also replace the bricks as needed where the white glaze has come off, but not wholesale, just as needed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So one of the concerns that Ms. Karen brought up to me is that if you were to replace the green glazed brick, we would not be able to match it exactly, which is a concern, and it's a valid concern. This is a building unlike any other downtown, especially, but also in Franklin, and she's really trying hard to do everything she can to do all the research and find everything she can to make the right decisions. That's why she's brought in all these glazed brick samples for you to see, really hear from you how you would suggest either, addressing the green brick especially. Would you take it all out and choose a whole new color, or would you patch it in with a color that's not necessarily matching the historic color, knowing that it will be visible from the different vantage points right there at the intersection? Is there anything you want to add to that?
No,
Just make sure you're just
oh,
talking now.
excuse me. The mortar, there is no question that in all the glazed brick area, the mortar has to be replaced. And the mason that I've decided to use, Wasco, has told me that he will not do it if the weather is freezing. It doesn't hold. You all surely know that. So we wouldn't be able to even start the project until maybe the beginning of March. I don't know. But the glazed green brick, I have called probably 24 brick companies over the past couple of weeks. And I have more samples that will be coming. These are some examples from Elgin, and that is a good company that is used. Here's some of the white, and here's some of the green in here. Problem is, the exact green is not in this bunch. Now, I have been told by one of the manufacturers of these bricks that if I can get several pieces of the green and send it to them, they could probably match it or come pretty close to matching it. Now, I don't know what we're talking about cost-wise to do a specific job for one project, but it is something I really want to look into because I want to find out. Maybe they can do a better job by matching it than some of these. The other option is, as to Amanda's point and to Centric Architect's point, is to take some of the better conditioned green brick, take it out, but keep it in certain, so it's all together, and then the replacement brick somehow is all together, and then so that we doesn't look quite so mottledy. And I don't even know that mottledy is the word, because when this gets up on the walls and in the sun, it probably could have a different appearance. The other option is to just replace only what's damaged with what we have, with what we can buy from one of these sample boards. One thing I would like to propose is that if I can have a couple more weeks, and I still would like to come on the 21st, I mean, not the 21st, but what if there's another meeting?
Oh, absolutely.
That I'm sure I want to do that. But I'd like to propose that I can maybe do a patch, a section of the front that's visible from the road with using some of these different tiles and see for myself, for you all, because if I go with all the green as new, it's going to be a different green. Now, that may not matter. It may be close enough, like choosing something like this, maybe like this, or one of these, like, they may be close enough that that is, when you look at it, it's going to be just fine. It's going to look really good. At the same time, I'm not worried about the white brick. I think we can get that pretty even. That matches up pretty good. And we'll be taking off some white brick, and we will be repositioning in another spot. But the mortar needs to be, and the whole facade needs to be taken out and re-mortared. And that needs to be done very, very carefully. And then we need to decide how we're going to do the green brick color, what's going to make the most sense. Because the icon of that building, the iconic look, is those funny little funky Art Deco stripes of green across the front. The other thing that we want to talk about too, if this is the time to do it, is scaffolding. How we're going to do the scaffolding on a project that's 2 stories on Main Street, you know.
And this
we-
group will not be as concerned about that. You can
Okay.
certainly work with me directly on that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to provide comments and relay the guidelines? Are you?
I'm through,
Okay.
I'm through. I
Okay.
could go on and on, but I won't do that.
Well, you can tell that Miss Cochran's very passionate about this building, and I'm so glad that she is the caretaker of this building. She's doing such a wonderful job on the research, and she's worked very closely with her team, and I've worked with her to a degree on the grant, which we're very, very, very excited
Yeah,
about.
I got it.
This is one of the premier buildings in our downtown. As far as the design guidelines go, the recommendation would be to preserve and maintain brick, as that's a character defining feature, especially on this building. The glazed brick is the character of this building. And certainly we want to preserve and maintain as much of it as possible. As with any other project, in-kind repair and replacement is necessitated occasionally. We would want to maintain as much of this glazed brick as we possibly can and only replace what cannot be fixed. Unfortunately, glazed brick, when it's missing the glaze, cannot be fixed so well. And so the recommendation would be to limit how much is removed. I would certainly recommend that Ms. Cochran continue to explore, sending in the samples and seeing if something can be matched, because that would probably ease her concerns about it most importantly, but then also, that it would meet the recommendations of the guidelines. If that cannot be, pursued and for some reason, I think that the next best step would be to continue to get some of those samples in that you've requested, and then we can do a material board on the outside of the building and try to compare the colors. It's really important to do that in a setting that's more typical of the building. If you look at them inside this room, it doesn't help you. You've got to look at it at the site with the sun and really see it from that angle. But I do want to commend her. This is a lot of work, and it has a lot of moving parts, and I appreciate her moving forward on it, and I will continue to help in any way I can.
I like your idea of the, rather than putting the brick up, I like the idea of doing a board, and maybe doing several boards, and then just sort of see. The other thing I really want some advice from you all on is weather, and knowing that Franklin has 465,000 wonderful events downtown, and we don't want to stop those or discourage those, but when can this work take place? When could it start reasonably? As I've called these brick companies, we're talking about maybe 3 to 4 months before we can even get the product, assuming we can get the product, because none of it's made here locally.
Right, and I can, again, staff can continue to work with you on that. They will review the proposal, and then I will help you with implementation.
Good.
Absolutely. One other thing I wanted to note is that Centric did note that a portion of the wall needs to be removed and rebuilt. The commission would certainly need to see more information about that. So I would ask that your architect provide something that shows the limits of where that wall is proposed to be removed, how it would be replaced, and that certainly will help inform staff and as I work with my team here on how we can better accommodate that implementation. We'd have to close the sidewalks for a certain degree. Would it have to be closing more than the sidewalk for a certain degree? See, that's some of the things that have been weighing in the back of our mind. But for you guys today, we'll talk more about and what you need to see as far as what sections of the wall need to be removed and how you would recommend Ms. Cochran moving forward on the glazing aspect. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, who wants to go first? Josh, crank it off.
Okay.
Looks like we got 3 things to talk about.
Yep.
Mortar, white brick, green brick.
Yep. I mean,
That's right,
And the
Jim.
parapet wall that has to be redone, obviously that'll come forward
Yeah.
in another situation, so.
yep. My concern is just trying to match. Like I
be really hard pressed to think about a situation where I'd be in support of taking all the green off and replacing it with a different green. Like I just
That's
can't.
actually, the architect actually suggested that, and I just,
Yeah, that would.
I mean, my reaction was, really?
Right. Given the guidelines, I think you're going down the right path of investigating, but I even worry about matching. You look at the image that's on the screen now, and there's lots of different colors of green there. So as far as matching, I worry about it looking like, kind of like standing out. So,
Yeah, the sun has faded that. The
right.
weather has
It's all
changed
over
it.
time.
It's
Yeah.
dirty.
Yeah.
It's dirt, too.
You better believe it. Yeah,
So
particularly
those-
that corner.
That's my, I mean, I think
Thank
you're taking the right steps to
Okay.
be a really good steward of the building, and my big concern would be any kind of wholesale type of replacement, and then being really careful about what we would consider as far as subbing in for the damaged brick, so it didn't look like dots all over the building. That's the
Well, that's
That's
the
the concern. Yeah.
$64,000 question.
right, right.
And Josh, to your point, this isn't a single brick green tone.
Right.
That's part of what makes glaze. It's that depending on what angle you look at it, how the sun shines on it, it will look different, even on a single brick. So
Right.
matching the color would be paramount.
Yeah, yep.
Brian?
So I'm interested in exploring that custom, if they could do a custom glaze for you. At least I think that's worth exploring. But even if they do that, you're going to get variations in that color.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's what I want, though.
Yeah, well, you do. You do want the variation. It's
But
a
either all
natural
new
process.
or mixed. What do you think?
So what we're seeing in this example, it looks like kind of towards the building, there are little chips maybe out. Is it all like that? I saw some of the white brick. I mean, the glazing's completely gone. So what is
Yeah.
it like on most of the green brick?
Cracked. Some of it's gone. It's about the same.
What percentage would you think?
It's a good question. When I asked the mason, I don't know how to put this in any perspective, he said, gee, green brick, if we just replace the really damaged brick, maybe 275 or 300. White brick, more about 2,500 to 3,000, if we redid all the white brick. That I personally don't think is needed because there's going to be a lot of white brick, but that pretty much is all the same consistent color.
So Brian, to make sure it's clear what you're asking, what you're saying is that, okay, this brick right here, clearly that brick needs to be replaced because
That's true.
about 90% of the glazing's gone. But on the green examples, what we're seeing in these photos is like a chip on the corner here or there. So why, and this is just me asking from the architectural analysis standpoint, why would the brick need to be replaced if it's
Right.
just this corner here? Is it going to continue to have issues? Are there more bricks that we're not seeing in these photographs that have significant glazing removal like you see on this brick here? Does the green brick really even need to be replaced if it's just corners here or there?
Yeah, it's not just corners. However, a large part of this is going to be solved when the mortar has been redone with appropriate mortar that is not penetrable by water and will not be affected by freezing.
Right.
And so it will keep the water out. And while we're doing this brickwork and this mortar work, we're going to check all the sealants under the windows and all those other little detail things that water can do to you.
And one other thought, and I don't know what they can do, but I mean, is there for the places that are just chips out, is there some type of enameled paint or something that could be matched and then painted into that?
Brian, I looked into that maybe 5 years ago, and I contacted a company in Chicago because there's a lot of Art Deco in Chicago. And they said, oh, yeah, we have a product. And they sent me a couple of little quarts of it, didn't they, Julie? And we had, my handyman, turns out his wife was a potter. So she said, I'll take that and put it in the kiln, and let's just see if we add that glaze to it and bake it again, if it helps. it looked terrible. I don't know, maybe I need to take a trip to Chicago and just see. I didn't like it. I thought it was kind of, by the way, y'all, I want to introduce my building manager, Julie Davis. She's going to be involved in a lot of this project, too.
So my next question is
Yeah.
actually to Ms. Rose, and that's that since we'd be replacing in kind, I know we're talking about colors too, is it something that does come before the Historic Zoning Commission?
It's a good question.
Yes, so replacement in kind doesn't necessarily come before the commission depending on what that is. But in this case, because color is so inherent to the material, it is something that we wanted to talk about because Ms. Cochran's talking about what's wholesale replacement of the single green color. And that to me, it's not necessarily meeting the intent of the guidelines where it's just to piece in where you can save what can be saved and replace only what needs to be replaced. This conversation's more about, is it appropriate to remove all this green? Is the recommendation from the architect that it all be replaced? Will just pointing it, remortaring, fix it so that there's less breakage in the future and we can just kind of hit pause and leave it as it is? Or do these all need to be removed? Or is the concern from her team that if you want to try to reglaze, it won't match, so you need to rip them all out and replace with a new color so that you're not patching in colors? I think leaving historic materials as much as possible would be the ideal situation here.
And trying to find colors that come close to the variations that you already have.
Right.
That's kind of my gut reaction, too.
Yeah.
But that's gotten me into a lot of more questions.
Questions are good.
Yeah.
Hopefully they have answers.
Yeah. Also, the lead backup time for this brick can be 3 or 4 months. And I need to find out, maybe you know this, Amanda, how long is my grant available? If-
would not be something I know
Okay, I'll talk to, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
In any event, it's very possible that if we do the boards, then we'll get a better idea of what's going to be the best mix for that, without changing the
Tyler.
look of it drastically.
I think what everybody said is valid. We've got to come up with good matching colors. The white does scare me a little because I deal in the whites a lot.
Oh, do you? You're my
Yeah.
man, then you're going to be my
There's
man.
a whole lot of whites. So that type of glazing, we see a lot in historic tile as well.
I know. yeah.
And there's a guy here in Nashville. And not that I'm advocating for him or not, but he owns a company called the Bungalow Potter, and he has on his website tons of color samples. And where I'm going with that is, as an architect, I write specifications a lot, and if you can find out the formula for those greens, which is probably one chemical compound mixed with another, but you've mixed a jar of stuff and you're painting it on. That's how they made these by hand in that era. If you can
Yeah.
find that specification, you can give it to one of these brick manufacturers and say, we think this is the formula. Can you try this? And the same's true about your mortar. Most likely it has Cumberland River sand
Oh,
and
yeah.
not crushed limestone and that type of stuff. And matching that's important. And so controlling those specifications, you might be able to look on that Bungalow Potter website and
Yeah.
find those greens. There's like 100 colors on there.
Oh, that's wonderful news.
And just maybe call, I think the guy's name is Steven, and just say, what is that chemical compound? I'm trying to replace some brick. What's the chemical compound? And then you could talk to the brick company on that custom and see if they can match it. And then the white's going to be a lot of get one of each of these,
Yeah,
every white they
that's kind of
have,
what
and
I
take
was
them out
thinking.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one and that one and,
But that's all I was going to
it's
say.
a really good suggestion. Thank you, Terrell. Tyler. Let me put my glasses on. Okay.
Okie dokie. I love ceramic brick. and having dabbled in ceramics,
Oh, good.
you were on the right path about the recipe for the glaze. However, it's like the secret recipe. They don't like to give them out. It's priority type of information. The beauty of the green brick with that modeling color is if you were to go with a custom mix glaze, because of that modeling, it's easier to achieve than a solid color. My question, and I'm supporting keeping the existing brick where you can the most, and just letting it age out appropriately, replacing the mortar correctly with the temperature sensitive and the right components for that will help. But where the original glazed brick is chipped, cracked, somewhat defaced, the underside of the brick is exposed. So
Right.
because of that, it's going to continue to deface or delaminate the glaze. It's like the dentist. It's always an erosion issue that's going to happen with that. So there really isn't anything you can do to the existing to stop that, glaze-wise.
There isn't anything
There
what?
is not a chemical that works
Okay.
to stop that, that emulates the glaze, because that is a baked-on product. Now, the recipe
Good to
that you
know.
might get from this guy, if he gives it, will act differently on the brick material itself, because the brick, the clay, reacts differently with these elements, so you may not get the same look. But those companies that suggested, the mason you talked about, would probably be able to, if you do decide to replace some to match it, I believe you could get a very, very good match on the green because of what it looks like. If you gave them samples of it, they could easily give you knockoffs or, samples of what they would come up with. And because it's modeled, you can mix it in so it looks like it. So that's to your advantage to have that kind of green. And I've been up
Oh,
to that
good.
building petting it. Like, it's beautiful
You've been aware?
to the building.
Oh,
to pet
thank you.
that green, because it's
Good.
got all kinds of colorations in it, and those are
I
just
know.
natural things. But it happens to the type of brick it is, the type of clay that is. So they go hand in hand on that one. The white's the same way too, but the white's different. It's more uniform color. So, like you mentioned, there's a bazillion whites.
Just holding
Oh.
them up and looking
Yeah.
and finding the right one.
And
They're all a little bit
yeah,
different.
we always do sample boards of material like this to see what it looks like in the natural daylight on different sides of the building too. So I think you can successfully accomplish what you want to do by leaving as much of the existing there and then integrating the new pieces. And I think it still will add beauty to the building to see some of the old stuff still there.
Yeah.
And then you'll have a game plan for, like, you might want to get extra stock on the green. Then you'll have a game plan in the future
Yeah.
when you need to replace more. You can, but the repointing and the mortaring is going to give you the best longevity for all these little problems not happening.
That's what Wasco
Because that's what's causing
told
the
me.
change in the temperature. And
Right.
glaze is glass, and it'll crack.
And when they were making mortar back in 1923, they didn't use some of the qualities that they can use now that don't wind up cracking or let water up.
Most of the
absorb.
buildings in Chicago that are glazed brick building, it's the mortar that's the failure
Yeah, interesting.
than the glaze itself.
Okay, that's so
So-
good to know.
You're gonna be very successful with this glaze color,
Okay.
especially the green.
Oh, that is encouraging.
Well, I'm going to echo the white scenario I've got down here. Whites can be problematic. You never know. You have to know what the undertones are. It could be a green, it could be a yellow, and just make sure the white, honestly, I think the white may be more troublesome than the green. So I think that the idea of having a board at the site is what, that we would need just to go by and take a look at it before it's actually approved. And also with the green brick, and Tyler, it sounds like you're resource there might be a really good thing, because really this color, this is coming from the arts and crafts movement. And so even though it's an Art Deco building, but it's, that type of brick is coming from the arts and crafts movement. So I think that, you know, I think I appreciate what you're trying to do, because it is an iconic building. But anyway, we're glad to help in any way we can.
I agree totally with Susan and Tyler on the white. I think the white's a bigger issue than the green, really.
Really?
Because I think the,
Good to know.
the
Okay.
green, I'm hopeful you can get a close match. I just, and how you were able to blend them in with those that need to replace it, I'm skeptical about that. But hopefully you can find something that would work. And I think the reference that Tyler has thrown out there would be a good point, especially if you can take a brick with you. If
Yes.
that's possible.
Well, there's a company that I've found that, as I said, that can make, you know, they can do the glazed brick
You've got
colors
something that you can send them, though, other than.
And I would just take a brick out.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And send them the whole brick.
Yep,
And
yep.
because it's evidently the minerals that are in the glazing compound. You know this, Kathy, better than I do, but that's what I was told. That they can pair up the minerals and give us something pretty close to it.
But, Ms. Cochran, you've got quite a project here.
Yes.
You don't have to
That you've been spending a lot of time on, so.
Yes, definitely, and we really
commend you for
appreciate
that.
it.
Amanda, you got any
I
other
just have some
comments?
closing comments and things that I think that staff and the commission need to see. So I would work with Wasco to evaluate how much you really want to remove of the white, but specifically the green. The white, as we've all talked about, we'll need a material board that we can have at the site and be able to actually see the different whites and help you choose which one might be the best fit to replace, because you really are just patching that in with the existing white.
Correct.
With the green, I would like to know more about how much you want to replace, because from the photos I see, and I'm definitely not a masonry expert by any means, but I'm surprised so much of it is being proposed to be replaced.
Harry told me about 275 green bricks.
And that concerns me a bit.
Correct.
That seems like a lot of green brick. And I'd like to know why he come up with that number. So maybe if we can have information from him, is it just every single green brick that has a chip on it? Maybe that's not the answer. Maybe some of that, the chipping gives it a character and age. It makes it feel like a historic building. So maybe it's not every single, dent, every single bruise. Some of that might need to stay to help it settle in. Maybe it's the ones that are missing 25% or more of the glazing or something like that. The same rationale you would use for a white brick. The white brick, we saw some pictures on here where significant amounts are removed, but I think that the green's so much more important to try to maintain, because it is in just select areas, and it may not need to be replaced to the same degree. So we're not only here to help you, we're here to help you save money. How about that?
I like that.
Maybe.
So you are suggesting, and maybe Jim too, that it's not going to lose its historic significance or its national or its registration if not every single one of those chip bricks are replaced, is it?
If every single chipped brick is replaced, I would
mean, that
like
would
to
be-
know the full number in relation to
Yeah.
all the bricks. It worries me. I would
worries
say
me
it
too.
does worry me, and I know it worries you. Because
It's not realistic.
it's all about
is it?
having the actual physical material there that's important.
To evaluate how much damage is to it, and is that going to make it all chip off in the future? But I'd say
Well,
less is more. Don't remove.
yeah, and to that point, I think for me to support whatever the proposal is, we need to have a very clear understanding about what replacing quote-unquote damaged brick is. I think that's what Ms. Rose is trying to get to, is what are we talking about here? Are we talking about it ends up being all of them, or it's just a very small percentage? And the other thing I think that we ought to just make sure to say out loud is the mortar piece too. I know mortar color can be an issue in changing the look of a building, so I just put that out there as a final proposals brought forward.
And I'll work with with Ms. Cochran offline and get into more detail about some of that, but I'm glad that you're bringing it forward so we can work to prepare that information for you.
Sue, do you have a
I did have a question. Have you talked to SHPO about this?
So the Tennessee Historical, the Tennessee Historical Commission staff did review the grant application through the TDEC process and are supportive of it. But I don't know if they know all the new information that has been brought to light about the amount of replacement. And so we can certainly get those numbers to you, and we'll work to make sure
That's
everything.
where your grant's coming from?
It's through TDEC, but the
Through what?
TDEC.
Okay.
Department
all
of
right.
Economic
Yeah.
Development.
But the Tennessee Historical Commission is housed within TDEC.
Got it, okay.
But that's a great question. I want to make sure that it's all dotting all the i's and crossing all the t's, and that she's meeting all the requirements of her grant, because certainly that's very important as well.
Okay, anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Don't, pass her those boards.
We appreciate you coming in, Ms. Karen.
Oh, okay, good, thank you. And if other questions come up in your minds, will you share them with Amanda?
Yeah.
And then
Thank you.
keep me working.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll have her
You all
come in
working.
December, DRC, and give an update on where she is. I think that's her next step.
She'll be a ceramic glazed expert by the time this is over. You can hang out that shingle, too.
business together.
All right, discussion of alterations courtyard at 159 First Avenue North, Harper Square.
Okay, let me help get these out of.
Get these out of your way. I can do that, honey, don't worry.
Don't worry. Okay, this item is related, the next two are related to Harpeth Square. Just a quick overview. I believe, I don't remember which one's listed first on the agenda, if it's the courtyard or the balcony. I'm sorry, courtyard's first? Okay, so there is a courtyard at Harpeth Square, as we all know. You see it primarily from East Main Street. You can access it from 2nd Avenue. Steve, who is representative of the owner, is here, as well as his architect, Mr. Berry, who would like to talk about some updates they'd like to make to that courtyard. And then the next item's also related to this project, but specific to some material change request. Thank you.
Got some handouts because I'm kind of old school like that. Hand them out if it helps. Bring them on. Okay, great.
That's right. You kill that tree, so let's have them.
I know it's habit. It's habit to get one and hand one out. And usually they hand them all back after it's over. Go, thank you.
Thanks.
Go. All right, awesome. Did y'all also need one for any kind of? Okay. In some places, it's only for like the full school. Okay. So, this is a few sheets.
Good.
Should I introduce ourselves and address and all that stuff? No address. Oh, so Andy Berry, Smith G Studio, and Steve Bacon at Harpeth Associates. So I have included 3 sheets from our submittal here, just because it was easier to see them in person. It's an overall floor plan, a few elevations, a few existing photos, and some 3D views. We are proposing to add a fence and a gate and a small kind of signage structure there to each of the existing entrances into the existing courtyard. That is right next to the garage entry off of
2nd Avenue.
East Main.
Or East Main.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I think these generally kind of speak for themselves. I think on this sheet that you have up here, Amanda, detail 4 with the 3D views are probably the best sort of example of what we're sort of shooting for. The awnings that are shown there, the 4 fabric awnings, those are in a separate COA. Those are, I think those are installed already,
They're
right?
existing.
Yeah. So those are existing now. We are looking to do the 4 planners that you see there in the future at some point. For now, though, we are looking to do the 2 kind of overhead pergolas using the 4 existing columns that Steve has. Then having some signage for each of those, and then having an operable fence area so that so you can close it off for events or special events or anything of that sort. And then it's a little bit hard to see in this image, except in the floor plan, which you can see overhead. There's a strip light that extends across the courtyard area.
Anything else?
I don't really think I have anything to add to that. How about you, Steve?
We add a little color to this. We have 2 other courtyards at Harpeth. We have one in the hotel and we have one in the apartments. And in both those courtyards, we use these limestone columns that we got in from a house in South Carolina, and they're, I think, from the 1870s. And those columns, those limestone, about 2,000 pounds each. They're 9 feet, plus you add the capital and you add the base, so they're up about 11 feet. But what we want to do in this courtyard, this is our retail courtyard, and we wanted to draw attention to our retailers that are back there. So if you're walking on Main Street in front of the bookstore, if we had these 2 big columns out there with the name of it, we think that's going to help draw people back there for our retailers. Also, if you're at McGavick's Coffee House, you're looking down the driveway there on that picture, you'll see these columns. So we wanted to draw attention to it, and we wanted to enliven the courtyard and events and stuff. So, and we had 9 extra columns, so we need to put them somewhere. They're in Rod's yard right now, so that's really the big reason. No, but we wanted to draw attention, and they're great old columns, and we want to again help our retailers back there.
Well, thank you, Steve. May I provide
Go ahead,
comments?
please.
Okay, so I am very excited. I think that, bringing more attention to this courtyard is great. I think everyone can agree on that. The main points that I would like to make is that this would fall into a situation that we call vesting. So the project was approved under a different version of the zoning ordinance and a different version of the design guidelines. So when that happens through a planned development like this one, or even some site plans, that means that the regulations in place from the zoning ordinance at that time carry through, and the design guidelines in the same suit. So in looking at this plan, it would be reviewed in light of the previous design guidelines and the previous zoning ordinance regulations. At that time that this project became vested, it was under the 2014 zoning ordinance. String lighting was not permitted. It was considered signage, and the applicant at that time for the development asked for a modification of standards to allow for the string lighting, and it was denied by the BOMA. So string lighting is not permitted as part of this project. If the applicant wanted to do so, they could certainly pursue amending the development plan that's on file. But as of right now, it's not something that can be permitted by staff just because the new ordinance allows for it. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the courtyard is considered formal open space as part of the planned development. And because of that, the open space must be maintained and accessible to the public. So having fencing can be fine, but the gates cannot be locked in any way. They would always have to be open so that it can be accessed by the public. The fencing would need to be reviewed in light of the design guidelines. What is being shown, I think we need a little bit more information on in terms of how that would look. I believe the intent is that it's an aluminum fence. Aluminum's not typically recommended for front yard locations, even in the old guidelines. It has been approved by the commission in the past when it has more of an iron appearance, like a very thin profile. That might be something that you want to see a sample of so that you can understand how that would relate. The arbor itself, in staff's opinion, does not relate so well to the architecture of the building. I do think an arbor could be appropriate. The columns could be appropriate, but maybe that curved element on top could be executed in a different way that's a little bit more compatible with the architectural style. Thank you.
Okay. Comments? Who wants to start? Kathy, you want to start?
Sure. Talking about the arbor, this has changed since last time, right? The arbor was much more of a
So
brutalized looking
I can
feature.
explain that. So let me pull up the street view really quickly. And I don't know. I know Andy had another comment he wanted to share. Is that okay that he does that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a few comments.
How about getting to the mic,
Some
Andy?
of what you, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. I have a few comments to help answer some of the things that you asked about. So the first thing, the two gates, they are vertically removable. So when they do not have an event, they could just take them out, set them in storage. You'd still have a fence there, except you'd have like an open area. There's also an existing fence, and we would essentially just sort of match that same fence that's existing there. Now, and then the thing about the arch, similarly to what you're showing here, we were shooting to generally sort of, even though it's not the same size, it's not the same scale, we were trying to shoot for something that sort of mimics that kind of aesthetic of the arch, kind of pergola that has the horizontals over it.
So what we're seeing here is a view of 2nd Avenue North. You can see this is Bridge Street. As you go to the right, you intersect with Main Street. So this is an existing access to the parking garage area to the left of the hotel. What they are proposing is to the right of the hotel facade here.
Right there.
And then also one at East Main Street.
No, that's not correct. That's at the bank. It's further back.
It's further back, but this,
Yeah, but
but this is the
Down
location.
that
It's not immediately here because there's a bank drive-through here, but it's further back. I can't drive. Well, maybe I can't. Yeah, I can drive. Some of these private ones, they don't let you drive through. So I'll be back here. Steve, is that, okay. I didn't mean to relay that incorrectly, but the intent would it be back here, but they're trying to model the one that you see on the left side of the hotel. Does that help answer your question, Kathy? Okay.
We haven't presented this before, so I don't know where this has changed. This is the first time.
She was thinking the other
Okay.
one.
Yeah, that's why.
The entrance,
Gotcha.
going into the parking entrance.
Gotcha.
Do you have any other comment, Kathy? Okay, Susan?
So we actually just took a bus trip and drove around Franklin to look at our previous projects. And we talked about the pergola that goes into the parking area. And I'm not sure if I can come up with the right word, but I think a lot of us felt like that it didn't have this very welcoming feel to it, quite frankly. And so when I look at what you proposed for this, it's very similar to that in terms of the arch part. And I realize that I'm treading on toes here, and I don't mean to do that. But I think that another design for that arch, it just has this kind of almost like a top of a fence. You know how they'll put those pieces on the top of a fence so you can't get over that? It has that feel to it. And I think there's other designs that you could do to mitigate that. And because I think the columns are beautiful and everything's great, but that part, it's just not coming across in the classic feel, I think, that you would like to have for this hotel, that it's really beautiful.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, Josh?
So the fencing of the courtyard, it's already fenced, isn't it?
Yes.
You're just adding the fence
It's
that goes
the
right
same
here.
material that we have now.
The comments I've heard are appropriate. I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, I think that the actual arbor portion between the columns is it's a little bizarre in scale and materiality. It's all kind of odd to me. The idea that it would be like 2 by wood on an arch and it's only 3 feet deep seems pretty peculiar. I could see something else as being the bridging kind of capital between the two columns. Is it a piece of cut limestone? Is it a timber? I don't know, but it looks like just pieces of wood, and it's a little contrived, stylistically speaking. In when we look at the other one, at least it has some depth in those members that are much more regular and have that kind of repetition. The one we looked at before, the existing, at least it has some depth, and those pieces are spanning between at least two kind of girders, for lack of a better word. This is just kind of a freestanding thing, and you just look at that top and go, well, what is that doing? And it's a little odd, and that's
Okay.
Yeah.
Amanda, you said no string lights, right? That's the current, okay, so that's,
We have string lights already at Harpeth, just FYI, like a lot of people in town. But
They
Well,
aren't permitted
But-
at that establishment as of today's date.
okay, well, I would have a problem with string lights there. I'll put it like that. So anyway, having said that, then the planters are not what you're thinking at this time. So it's really just the gate and the arch.
And,
Well, are the-
and you were open to a design of that arch. I've never,
Yeah.
to me, it's branding it, that having a name up there, that was more important.
I get that. So, and I think going along with what Tyler said is and others, Susan has said, on the top of that thing, just something doesn't feel right. And the gate, Amanda, talk about that. Is that permissible, or it says operable gate?
So it just would need to be operable and not be locked ever. It cannot be locked.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
That's fine.
That's all, that's all I got.
Okay.
Anything else you want to add, Tyler? Amanda?
No. No, I do agree with the comments that we've heard. I think something more in the classical order could be helpful. Even, just an idea. It could be something that's flat that would allow evergreen, planting to grow on it to feel more settled. If that and inviting. Everyone's attracted to plants. that would certainly grab people's attention. They would want to go to the courtyard. So that's just a thought.
Comment, and I have a comment too.
Okay.
Okay.
Feature those columns. Those columns have an intriguing draw to themselves. So if the arbor part is, we're fighting with that, feature the columns and make your entranceway with the columns and perhaps greenery.
But you've got the columns, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought you said. All right.
They're not changeable and.
No, I get it. We get that. Okay. Susan, do you have something else?
Well, I think that we're calling this an arbor, but it doesn't appear that anything's going to grow on this. Is it possible to have something that's
Well, I like that idea. and
Vegetation.
We'll explore that.
Poison
But,
poison ivy?
Kudzu.
Not very inviting.
You said everybody loves plants. I said, no.
Anyway, I don't know, maybe it's not possible, but I think that certainly the design, there's another design out there, I think, that could be more, again, complement the classic feel of the hotel itself.
Yeah, and to follow up my comments, those purlins that are up there are so dense that that's what's making it kind of peculiar. But I'm afraid if you thin them out, it could feel sort of cheap and too thin. And so I don't know that there's an in between. Maybe there is, but I think that was kind of the reaction to the other one. Is it didn't have a proportion and scale that kind of felt right because it's really tall. I think trucks go back there maybe. And so it's not a pedestrian scale. I think this is obviously more pedestrian scale than that one. But I'm afraid that the kind of delicate nature and the density of those delicate pieces just doesn't feel right atop of those columns. So.
I was about to ask that. I mean, if it was, oh gosh, I'm sorry. If it was essentially the same kind of concept and then flatter, and then since it's takes this and flattens it, we could certainly space out the horizontals further. Conceptually, is that an option? I mean, I hate to draw it over again, come back, and you go, we don't like that either.
Well, I think
mean,
you just need to play with
conceptually-
some options. You're
Yeah.
the creative person. Well,
Okay.
We can look at 3 options if you want to bring 3.
Yeah.
I think what I'm hearing is that you don't necessarily need to have horizontal or vertical, or you need a horizontal member, of course, because that's what you're trying to do, but no vertical pieces necessarily need to be there. It could be something more classical where it's a piece of masonry that goes across, or it's something flat where something can grow on it, where it doesn't have a profile, and all you really experience are the plantings.
So following up on that, this is essentially a really similar profile to the interior courtyard also. Should we, these 3 options, is that a follow-up DRC, or is that like a staff?
This
How
will
do we-
require historic zoning approval because this type of application is not eligible for administrative approval, especially under the guidelines that it's vested under. But you wouldn't necessarily need to come to another DRC. It just depends on how quickly you can turn this around. I can get you on the next agenda that's available based on your timing. Unfortunately, the application deadline because of the holiday is Wednesday afternoon. So it may not be enough time for you, but you can certainly look at January.
No, it's good.
okay, that's it. We're ready to roll on to the next one then, which is the balcony.
So,
Thank
Mr. Chair-
you.
Mr. Chair, before we move on to 4 more, how about a break?
No, well, let them get through. How about?
They have one more.
Oh, they
Their
do have
second
one more.
We have a second.
Oh,
That's a great
right.
idea. I'm right there with you.
All right.
Okay.
And then I'll take your
My
comment
suggestion,
under advisement. How about that?
Okay, so I will open this one. This is something, a really practical discussion that I
Yes.
had invited Andy to come to. There is a number, or there are a number of balconies at the apartment side of this development. And there was a need to remove some of the material and quickly. And I'll let Steve explain that the way he'd like to explain that. But ultimately, that was a decision made by staff, and they're moving forward with suggesting a new material that might be a better fit for the problem that arose.
So I'll quickly do this. On September 5th at 5 a.m. in the morning, I got a text and said that the balcony stone had collapsed from the 3rd floor above the bakehouse and came down in chunks this big. Needless to say, that would have killed somebody. It scared us a lot. We have 10 cantilevered balconies. So after that event, we went, talked to the city, we removed these balconies in front of our retail really quick. And then a couple of weeks after that, after we had an inspector come, he suggested us remove all the cantilever balcony stone. I think at the end of the day, I think the mason did not fully adhere this stone, this Ariscraft, which is basically man-made sandstone, I think, correctly. It's not a full bed adherence to that concrete balcony. Now, we have a lot of balconies, but these 10 are the cantilevered balconies where you can't get a full bed of your mortar onto that balcony. So it worries us. That product, I don't know if Andy brought it, is very heavy, even though it's man-made sandstone. And who's to say years down the road, because this is a legacy project, that something else like this might happen. So we, at least ownership, is favoring a lightweight product. And, you know, we're all about natural products. That's why we like being located in the district and everything. But it's heavy, and water happens. And water got in between this concrete right there, got between the stone and the balcony, and it came down. So we would like to have a discussion with you guys about coming back with, I know this is something you don't like to say in the historic district, but an EFS-type product that is used at Belmont, that is used at Vanderbilt, has been used at Berry Farms, that they use basically on the second floors and up. It's very lightweight. And my architects are saying that you won't notice the difference. It can score it, and it can look just like this Ariscraft that we use. So we would just like to have a discussion with you guys about doing our 10 cantilevered balconies in this EFS-type product, because we can't get a full bed of mortar on that balcony. So we're open to discussion.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, just go to the
Okay.
mic.
Okay. As far as the historic district design guidelines, the recommendation for any details, ornamentation, trim materials is that it be comparable to the district. Of course, having a natural masonry material would be the better fit. However, there are exceptions our guidelines can make for evaluating alternative materials. Some of the things that you would be asked to consider is how the alternative material not only looks in relation to a natural material, but how well it would weather over time and continue to emulate a natural material. For example, cementitious siding, like the hardy material that we're all familiar with, is an alternative material that has been approved on new construction pretty regularly in the historic district. But it was a new material at some point, and it had to prove itself, just like any other new material. So some of the things that we see on cementitious siding versus wood is that it wears the same way, in that, over time, it doesn't have a sheen or some sort of a casting that makes it feel less authentic than wood per se. But obviously it is not wood, and it wears better in the sense that it doesn't rot as to the degree that wood could if wood's not maintained. So that's just something I'd like for you to keep in mind as you look at this. Of course, I wouldn't be able to provide you a recommendation without looking at this myself. So I would recommend that we pass this around and let everyone kind of see it in front of them and look at it, and perhaps even have a material board put up at some point at the location so that you all can see it in relation to the stone that's already there. Thank you.
So I'll just jump in if I can. So this is not the exact same stone that's on our building. Due to the sort of hurried nature of getting in front of everybody, I found just a random piece of stone in our office, called up Stowe and said, hey, we have a sample of Delta stone, light buff. Can you send us something similar to that? So this is their first shot at that. And oftentimes what happens, you'll see a few photos in here of some of our projects at Berry Farms. We end up seeing probably 20 of these and then finally settling on a sample that everybody's happy with. So this is just kind of their first kind of shot at it. I'm sure that you all are familiar with EFS.
So the little piece is the stone that's there.
It's
on site.
very similar,
Oh, okay,
except I didn't.
That's,
Yes, yeah.
it's
yeah.
stone that's there.
Yep, essentially,
Maybe a
yes.
little different. And then this is what you're proposing, right?
Yes, yes.
All right, got it.
So as we move forward through the approval process, what would be asked is that a piece of the stone they've removed from the building could certainly be presented to you
Yeah.
in relation to the samples.
So while that's coming around, Josh, you want to start and comment? You're familiar with that.
I mean, I think it all comes down to what the ultimate product and what the original stone and the proposed modification looks like. Obviously, safety is important, so that's my comment.
Okay, Brian?
As long as it's compatible with the material that's there in color and style, if we're talking about historic, and it provides safety for the public, I think that's what you want.
So if I could hop, it's some places you can't comment until they're
No,
finished.
just,
Don't let them finish.
Okay.
yeah, let them.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, EFS had some bad years through the 80s and 90s, and it really is a different material now that we have gotten the opportunity to study and use over the years, and it's just a different thing now. I think it does come back down to texture and things. I think that's their version of the stone texture, and then there's Archistone and all that. I wanted to say to folks who might be weirded out by EFS that even people doing cementitious stucco like today are using Stowe as their top coat, and so they're using the EFS top coat over foam, and they're using it over cementitious and lath. So you get the same top coat. If that gives anybody peace of mind, it is what stucco folks are using now. I mean, every day. So.
Good. Kathy?
Oh, yeah, let me kind of, that's nice. I would definitely support the Ethos type product, mostly because you can mimic your profile and get that to the T. So at a distance, you will never know it's not stone. So good fix.
Okay.
Susan?
So is this the one you're actually looking at?
It's an example of how closely we can
Okay,
get on.
because the colors are
first
not
shot.
Yeah.
working together.
The stone, that's not the same stone.
I know, but this is a green undertone and this is a yellow undertone.
Yeah, and that was the reason I say usually we have like 20 sets of samples
Got
to
you.
find as closely as we're able to.
Okay.
If this was just over a phone call, I have a sample of stone, I need something that's really, really close, and I need it in 2 days.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
I get you. All right, so I would say that we would need to see the actual STO, STO, is that what it's called, STO? But I would be in favor of this material. I'm horrified that you've had to deal with this. I mean, I appreciate your situation, but I think I would be fine with that, if the color is a good match.
The good news is nobody was hurt.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
So how does that, what's your substrate that it'll go on first?
The face of the existing concrete slab.
Right, I see that, but doesn't something go on before this stuff?
From
You gonna do the foam, or you gonna?
It's foam and it's adhered to it, and
Right.
they add their
That's,
finish, sort of brown coats, a single coat over it, and then a finish coat over that. And
Okay.
it'll have
that's
joints in it, and it'll have the same kind of profile as this here,
Okay.
which is the existing stone that's up there. So I would have the plan on our end is that if in fact EFS is a suitable thing, I mean, we all understand EFS isn't ideal. We don't, as architects, usually try to use it, except I think in this situation, it is really the best option we have. So if EFS is sort of settled on as an acceptable option, we would then have a fabricated profile, then have
that
a
sounds like
whole
a great idea.
bunch of samples.
I support what you're trying to do.
Awesome.
So what I'm hearing from everyone is that we have 6 of the 9 voting members here. A majority feel comfortable with you pursuing that option. So what I would suggest at this point is to continue to work toward an application. I don't think you could do this for the December meeting, but certainly for the January, is that you work on developing that profile and selecting colors. If in the meantime that you want to have a material board made where you have one of the original pieces of stone that was removed and have a couple of the color options right there next to it, then they can actually see it side by side and see the color qualities, the texture qualities, that profile, because it's more than just color. That's really important in looking at
So
this.
you're really talking about a prototype sample, right?
Yes.
We would have to
So-
see a physical sample to
Yes, yes,
sign
yes,
off
yes.
on
That's,
that. And then we'd also
that
have to
would be
have
great.
color sample.
Right.
I have one more
That's,
question.
that's perfect. Okay, we're good.
One more
Kathy has a
question.
Oh, sorry.
Aging, how does the ethos age in comparison to the existing, to see how those two
Great
might
question.
age out? So you might need to pick a different type of the texture, I think, would really determine how much dirt does it grab, how much washes off, and then just the aging of the two, compare the two materials. If you could find out from the ethos provider, how does that play into an existing stone?
And Steve, that'd be really important for you because you certainly wouldn't want your balconies to be way brighter than everything else or vice versa. And that's part of the reason that we have those questions. We ask for alternative materials because of that point exactly.
And the other thing too, with the ethos too, being on a balcony, typically it's not used on a balcony because it can get dinked in. So I don't know if users have plants or dogs that, you know, maybe there's a design.
But it's outside that fence, so they can't touch that.
It's-
It's just on the edge. It's the edge of the
just this
balcony.
edge here
Okay.
that would
there's a
fall
fence.
into the right of way. If other, if it came off, it would be soft.
Yeah, but there's still a bottom guardrail on the railing, right? And there's a
Several inches
space.
outside. So that's 2 inches high.
Pets
and
can
this is
scratch through it
several
or
inches outside of that.
Something. So just, I don't know if there's a design element where it steps down from the slab, maybe? I don't know. But I would just be concerned because it's typically not used as a balcony facing material, so.
Yes, it's several inches from any place that you could have a foot on.
But if it falls off, it's not going to hurt anybody.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you guys coming in. I'll be back in touch.
Go back to Brian's suggestion. Take what, 5-minute recess here?
Okay.
Well, I'm fine, but
Okay, everyone, we'll resume the remainder of the agenda at 5:45 PM. Thank you.
5:45 PM, we will reconvene.
And then we needed a border.
Hey, Joey, we're starting when you're ready.
Yep. we're
Okay,
ready. All
awesome.
right, we're back. Discussion of alterations, construction of refuge area enclosures at the factory at Franklin.
Okay, I just want to lead in really quickly that the rest of the agenda is 230 Franklin Road, the factory at Franklin. So the way we've divided it up is we have the first item being discussion of the refuse area enclosures. This did come before the Historic Zoning Commission as part of a preliminary recommendation request on the development plan. It was not one that the Historic Zoning Commission could get provide a recommendation to, because at the time there were 6 members present and it was 3 and 3.
Right.
The Board of Mayor and Aldermen did ultimately approve the modification of standards with the understanding that the proposal would still need to be vetted in light of the design guidelines. The design guidelines do recommend that mechanical refuse areas all be behind buildings and not in front of buildings. And so it will be staff's recommendation still that the proposed locations not be as shown. I'm preempting Jeff here, but I just wanted to relay that because I know that it's a little deja vu. So we'll start with this one and then we'll work our way through the rest of it. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Jeff Rosiak from Gamble Design Collaborative. I know that this package that Amanda has on the screen has been shared with you all. I have hard copies if anyone needs it to follow
I
along.
would love a hard copy.
Okay? Sure, good.
All right.
Right. As Amanda mentioned, this was presented to you all before. It was approved at BOMA on October 11th. If you kind of skip to page 3, we are showing the context of the requested modification of standards. And you'll see in the red circles the areas where existing dumpster locations are. And in yellow, areas where historically dumpster locations have been shown or have been located. And as we continue to improve and consider the next life of the factory, we're considering how to deal with refuse collection on the site. As you know, we've made a lot of progress already, but this is kind of one specific detailed element that we're still working through and figuring out. On page 4, you'll see the Liberty Pike frontage of the factory and the 2 locations where we are proposing to have refuse collection and dumpster screening, which is detailed on the following 3 pages. On page 5, we've gone through a number of dimensions so that you can get a sense of the scale of the refuse collection areas. And we really spent a lot of time thinking through the screening as we've talked through that with this board and with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And so we've gone well above and beyond the typical dumpster enclosure screening requirements. We have a masonry wall, which is required, but we also have, as you can see a little bit on page 6, we have a series of layers of landscape that are proposed to screen these enclosure locations. We have evergreen foundation plants, we have native grasses, we have evergreen shrubs, and then as a final layer, we have a growing vine that is affixed to the wall, kind of a wrought iron woven wire mesh that's affixed to the wall where a variety of vines can grow together and kind of further conceal the dumpster enclosure. And then on the final page, we've shown the dumpster doors, which mostly we wanted to really show sort of the level of care and level of design intent that we are thinking through as we're thinking through the dumpster enclosures. We've spoken at some length in some of these meetings about the dumpster locations and how they're serviced. They'd be serviced once a day. They have hose bibs at each of the dumpster locations to wash them out. So they're going to be highly maintained. It's obviously of great concern to the ownership to keep them in good shape and maintain them to the highest level. And so we're here before you today to discuss and get comments, and I think we'll be at the voting meeting on
December.
the 21st.
So this hasn't been submitted yet, but if
Sorry,
you,
submitted next week, and then we'll be at
it'd be
the voting
submitted by
meeting.
Wednesday at 5
Wednesday.
o'clock.
That's right, that's right.
Short week.
Yes.
But yes, it could be at the voting meeting on December the 12th?
12th.
Yes.
That's right. That sounds right.
Okay. Comments? Kathy, start it out.
Okay, you have ruined me because now every time I go by a dumpster, I'm assessing it and looking at it, and my husband won't let me get out of the car anymore. But it's just something that they are atrocious, and this attention to what you guys are doing here are, I think, is overdone and very good, and I think it's a good solution. The big problem I noticed with most of all of them, they don't shut the doors. They have beautiful doors, gates, and the doors are left open. So is there a mechanism that they spring shut? Are they lockable? I don't know. And
They are lockable. We hadn't really discussed a spring mechanism. Typically, there wouldn't be one, but for the function of this parking lot, they need to
Yeah.
be closed all the time.
well, that was the
so-
big thing I noticed, and looking at them everywhere I go, is just, this is beautiful design. It's lovely, and I think the attention to the greenery, although, we don't really rely totally on the greenery,
Sure.
but it's a beautiful little enclosure. The gates are stunning. Here we bring out the kudzu. Boy, that'll grow on those walls too. But I'm not sure too, there's going to be a lot, I think, of refuse. So once a day is the best thing you can do to manage the smells, and burning up the ground certainly helps too. So I think it's a good solution, and I would support the location of them.
Okay, Susan.
So, remind me what we had before. Was it more of these, and are you combining them, or is it the same amount?
Well, we are adding dumpsters in a new location. So previously, they had been behind in the
No, I
area.
think she's talking
No,
about.
I'm not talking about
In this
that.
spot.
In this
Where there,
spot.
are there,
It's
the same thing.
It has not been changed.
It has
from-
not been
That's
changed. So
correct.
what do you feel like you've brought to the table that wasn't there before?
Well, we've added a lot of detail in terms of the complete picture, including landscape, including the kind of the wrought iron, woven wire mesh material for the vines to grow on, and sort of the door design, the way that whole package feels aesthetically.
Okay.
And it's just been, it's more complete as the factory has continued to work through the process and more detailed.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
okay, Brian?
If I look on page 4, so of the actual packet, I believe it's a page 4.
Brian, can you confirm if this is the page?
It's not. Let's
Okay.
see.
Next page.
This page?
No, it may be the one before.
This page?
No,
That was right,
Do you
the
get-
first one you had, I think, is if you're looking for that.
I am. Oh, yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
So if you look at so at Street View, and you see the dumpsters, these dumpsters are actually, they're 11 feet by 31 feet. That makes 341 square feet, and they're 8 feet high. When I look at those from the street, they almost look like small buildings. And so, as a result of that, I mean, I really have to support the guidelines. I think that there are other solutions that could be brought to bear. It's a large piece of property, and that's what I would like to see happen.
I think your point's taken. I'd just kind of remind the conversation that we've, again, had a few times, which is with the size of the property, with the number of users, tenants throughout the space, we really need to find places that are proximate to some of those tenants for our refuse collection. And otherwise, we have issues with either taking trash through the building to the areas where they are now and behind where what we call the Mockingbird Theater area, or we just don't have trash that's proximate to these locations. And so as they're having conversations, trying to get new tenants in these spaces, it's one of their primary concerns is how do they manage their operations? How do they get refuse to where it needs to go? And how does it work with their business? And so it really is an important detail for them, and it's an important. We've considered many options, and this is the way that it works best for the tenants, and obviously why we've proposed it as such.
I think to be clear too, that's not the only locations, right? We've got a lot more corrals in the back as well. This is just to service those uses that are along Liberty Pike.
So I know not everyone's provided comment, but I do want to note that one thing that you could ask if you're so inclined is to ask for a mock-up. Now, I don't mean a mock-up like they build a brick wall, but maybe something that shows, the span of 31 feet at 8 inches or 8 feet tall, and just kind of use some creative ways. I know in the past we've asked for it for buildings where people will float balloons. In this case, I think you could probably just put some lumber in the ground and just kind of do like a rough frame to show that size. Would that be helpful?
Not for me.
Okay. Not for you?
Not for me.
No.
Okay. Okay, well, if that's not helpful, then I certainly wouldn't ask you to do that, but I understand.
Go ahead, Tyler.
I'm referring to the second to last page. I think it helps that this is below the sidewalk a bit. I'm also mindful that, on days that the parking lot has cars in it, that they're between the road and the building too. And while cars aren't typically 8 feet tall, they definitely get to 6, and you'll have some even bigger than that. So I don't have a problem with the location. I think it's one of those things we wish we didn't have any trash anywhere on the property, but that's just not realistic. And when I look at the overall site, in my mind, it's the equivalent of like 2 city blocks. It's like, well, you can't expect reasonably people to walk 2 city blocks carrying trash. And so because of that, if this were further downtown in a single unit and they wanted to put the trash up front, we'd say, well, of course not. It doesn't make any sense. Here, because of its specific arrangement, I can be in favor of it. I had a note here. Walk me through the materials of the door. Is it some type of steel frame that's infilled with wood, or what am I looking at there?
Yeah, it's a steel frame infilled with wood. The post that you see kind of between the columns or in front of the columns would be a steel frame with kind of a hinge piece on it, and so that steel frame would be the opening and closing element with the wood to kind of bring that materials into the.
And is that like pressure treated? Is it?
I guess that would be the appropriate material. We hadn't discussed specifically the.
Is it painted? Is it stained? Is it raw? Is it? When you submit it, I think those are important things for us to know.
Good point.
Just because I don't want to be surprised and show up and go, oh, well, I didn't think it was going to be that, because we just don't know what it's exactly supposed to be. And I don't think that's too much to ask for just a little bit more explanation on that. Yeah, those are my only. And,
Okay.
and the reason most of those doors are left open is because the trash man hid it and it doesn't close anymore.
Good point.
You know?
Because nonetheless, they're still open.
Oh, yeah, it's a pain.
Okay, I don't have any problem with the location. I think Tyler's comment about it does, the grade steps down from the sidewalk and the street. So I don't think that 8 feet is, height is going to be that big of an issue. I think you've gone, as Kathy said, I think you've gone over the top in trying to come up with a design that screens all of this. And so I do think the detail on the specifics on the wood doors would be helpful when you come before us for the vote. But other than that, I think it's fine, and I think we need to move on from the garbage areas.
Amanda, would it be possible to use another material other than a natural wood? Like, could it be a synthetic product? Would that be against the guidelines?
The guidelines would allow for alternative materials as reviewed on a case-by-case basis. So if that's something that they wanted to bring in, I would certainly encourage them to bring a material sample.
I would support that.
And I have just one other comment to make, and that just to take off of what Tyler said, that if you were in a downtown area with a long street frontage with all retail and restaurants, you'd never put dumpsters in the front. And the businesses would find a solution for their trash, and without having them in the front. And it's just that I know a solution can be found other than putting dumpsters along Liberty Pike. So that's one of the reasons I support the guidelines on this issue.
Okay, that's it. You got anything else, Amanda? Susan, excuse me.
Well, so if I understand Amanda correctly, you're not in support of this. The guidelines are not supporting this.
City staff is not supportive of it based on the design guidelines.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And the reason is?
The reason is that modern features are recommended to be placed behind buildings and screened from street view. Now, they are screening them from street view, but the location is still problematic based on the guidelines.
Okay.
But I think we've got to use some practical judgments here.
And that's what the commission is here
And- well,
charged
that's-
to do. I'm
so
charged to
that's
tell
where
you
I'm
what the
coming from.
guidelines say.
We've kind of worn this thing out for about 3 or 4 times, and the practical solution for the tenants that are going to occupy that side of the building is to put them where they're proposing to put them. That's what I come down to. So,
When we really look at the whole site and the picture of where it's gonna be when we're finished, we're gonna have 4 fronts. Really,
Yeah.
there's really not gonna be a back when we've
That,
got.
that- that's exactly, and that's the biggest change of the whole deal, the whole site. You've got multiple entrances. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents. All right, Amanda, let's go on to the next one, storefront windows and door conditions of approval at the factory.
So we have Alan Arender and we have Gina Emanuel here. Gina is with Centric and Alan is with Holiday. And what we're going to talk about right now is something that came up during some due diligence by the applicant. First off, I'm going to let them share some good news about this big elephant in the room right here. So I'll let you guys jump in, and then I will tell you what we're talking about.
It's red.
It's painted now.
The water tower's painted.
Looks great.
Yeah, logo should go up as soon as it's warm enough. Hopefully in December.
The color looks incredible. Yes.
It's the greatest identifier you could possibly have.
It was fun. We went through, you saw a few test patches.
Yeah.
Painted over a few weeks, and we ended up finding the actual red inside that we were able to get matched and use.
Very cool.
It looks
Very
good.
cool. Okay,
Okay.
so what we are talking about right now is some conditions of approval that were issued by the commission as part of some previous certificates of appropriateness. So you're all aware that that Centric has worked with Holiday to bring forward to you guys, and you have approved as a commission a number of alterations to the facades, whether it's replacing anodized aluminum storefronts with new storefronts, or to add some new storefronts or windows at specific locations. As a condition of approval on that, the condition was that the color of the new storefront or windows must match that that's existing. That's pretty standard, but I will allow the applicant to elaborate more, but ultimately, they're finding that it's difficult to do that. And I was very thankful that Luke with Centric had reached out to me directly, asked for some guidance. I did email the commissioners to ask for your guidance as well, and because there was some questions lingering still, and I felt like it was better suited to come to a DRC. This is here we are, and I'll let, I guess, Gina jump in and kind of explain where they are on things and get your feedback.
So if you all of these things, and Amanda, I don't know if you want to just cycle through some of the images. These are all ones you've seen before. And so, but I was just giving them here to jog your memory. These are all things we've approved as we've come to you. New window openings, replacing windows where one used to be that got filled in, putting in the door within a window system so that we could allow that for tenants. So as you're kind of going through, you'll see this throughout. I would like to stop on page 6. I think that's the one you're on.
This one right here?
Okay, so I'm going to show you this, and then we're going to jump to another page. So this was a sample that Holiday put in. It is a steel replica window, which we think works really well.
Great profile.
In there. Yep, it very close match to what is there. And so we are using this throughout. The problem is this comes in 5 colors, standard colors, which are black, bronze, white, green, and ivory. So I'll leave you with that, and then I think we can keep scrolling through. There's a couple other small things in here I may come back to in a minute after we finish the colors. If you go to page 16, is probably the best page to look at. So again, you're just kind of scrolling through things we've already talked about. But when you get to page 16, you are going to see a lot of different things.
This is where I'm going.
Nope, one more.
Oh, okay, this was 16.
Oh, sorry, yes, sorry. And then drawing there. Okay, so if you zoom out on here. So we said match what's there. So matching what's there has proved to be difficult because what's there is lots of different things. And they're all at different stages of aging. So when we are to get a color, even if we could match that color has a patina on it. So even like if you look at this image on the left, there's multiple different colors on that window. You look at the one in the middle, it's the same thing. They're just kind of rusting differently. So it's not consistent. It's not consistent really anywhere. And there's already sort of this black. If you look at some of the pictures, there's already this black on site. And so we said in lieu of us, since we cannot actually match this because, it's just age that's naturally occurred over time, there's not a color that really matches that, and there's not a color that would match it consistently across the campus. We are asking to use the black because at least that is present on the campus and it's got some consistency. So that's really what we wanted to bring up and talk to you today and get your thoughts.
Amanda, you got anything else?
I just wanted to let you know that the profile that was chosen was an excellent profile. So the window that you saw, I sent the picture out previously, that you see on this page here, has great dimensional qualities. I heard from a number of folks through email that the black seemed like a fitting option. Some of the other questions that I heard is the intent to paint the existing and then add in black, which is not the intent, but I wanted everyone to be privy to the same information. One of the other questions was, this seems a little shiny. It calls attention to this being new versus the historic window above. So I just want to remind everyone what the preservation theory would suggest. And it's for most anything in our guidelines document, that new should be compatible but differentiated. So we wouldn't want anything new to be mistaken as historic. And they certainly wouldn't be able to do that because you can't replicate the aging on these windows, but you would want the new windows to be able to kind of disappear into the overall, experience of the building and not call attention to them being new, but you wouldn't want to also replicate them to the degree that someone would think they were always there. So, which is a difficult thing to achieve on some of this, and so that's why we have these tough questions and we're bringing it for you to consider today. So what we'll do is just kind of go through and get your thoughts on it. If the consensus of the DRC is that this is an appropriate means, that it meets the intent of the condition of approval, then we'll certainly allow them to move forward on that. If there doesn't seem to be consensus on that, then we'll ask them to bring whatever information that you need in order to bring it back forward for a formal vote.
All right, Brian, start it off.
So, just a question on this. So, if I understand this, on the new windows, they would be black, and all the other windows would remain rusted or a rust
They would
color?
remain as they are now, yes.
They remain as they are now. What are you proposing to do? That?
Do you mean to leave the existing as they are? Yes. We're proposing to leave them as they are.
Okay. Well, I would support black. And one reason I would do that is because I know that at least in the Victorian times and early in the 1900s, sashes on houses were painted black. It just kind of, it actually helps with the light as the light comes through the windows. So I would support what you're asking.
Tyler?
I think I agree with Mr. Laster. I like the window. The profiles look good. I actually went by and broke into your fence. Sorry about that. No, I didn't really do that. I stood at the fence. It looks good. I kept in my mind, I didn't know there was 5 colors. I kept thinking a dark bronze. Their particular bronze is towards the buffer side and not towards the dark bronze, which almost looks black anyways in some brands. So because of the limitation of colors, I liked the black better in this particular line because their bronze is a little more buff, but it's my opinion.
So, Kathy?
Yeah, I agree with everybody. I think the insert, the one that's in the new, is beautiful looking. Great profile. I mean, it's wonderful. And in my opinion, it's always better to go with the black as opposed to find something else that's a miss, like you tried to match it and it misses it. So the miss is always not a good choice. So I think going with the black is what
Susan?
will set it apart.
What color do you think they were originally?
I honestly don't
Don't
know without doing more research.
Right.
They were originally.
Rust.
Probably, yeah.
I think they were probably a red color, similar to what the tower was, to be honest. That's
Could be.
what I think, but without some paint analysis,
Right.
that's certainly not something that we'd be able to tell.
Yeah, see, I would like to see more research done from my standpoint.
I'm fine with the black. I think any bronze is going to turn black anyway, so I'd be fine with the black.
So based on the 5 folks here, it sounds like 4 are comfortable, 1 would like more research. Do you feel comfortable with this moving forward, or would you rather this come back to the commission for a vote?
I'm fine.
I'm fine moving forward.
Are you fine moving
I'm
forward?
fine with that. I mean, I don't mind being the odd one. It doesn't bother me.
Well, I had enough heartburn about it, wanting to make sure that, staff met the intent of the commission's conditions of approval, that I wanted to bring it back forward too, so.
That's fine.
I certainly
You've done
understand
it.
that.
Let's-
Yeah, I think we'd feel, Susan, I would feel different about if we were talking about painting the old or cleaning those up in some way.
Right.
But for the new windows to be similar profile, look, and feel, but be distinctly a different finish, feels right in view of Department of Interior standards,
Right.
because that's what they ask folks to do. So, I think I'd say, no, we need more information. We're messing with the original.
Right.
In here, I don't feel so much that way. I mean, that's just my opinion, but.
Now-
You good then, Amanda?
I think so. One other question I wanted to bring up is that and I'm sorry, but I want to bring it up while it's here. This is a window, but the storefront is that in the same boat as well? The storefront
We would
system?
like it to be like a black as well.
Okay,
Yes.
because this is a different maker and a different product. Would you be able to match that black with the black of the storefront?
I think so. I mean, they're pretty close.
It's a
We
it's
will-
a
we can
matte
come
black,
back and show
right?
you that.
It's a matte black.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matte, yeah.
I think I saw that on some other.
Satin
section.
Okay. And then on the
I don't mind
front,
giving you samples so you have them.
Okay.
And you can see them both together.
that would be helpful. And then on the overhead doors that are being added to the front facade, how would that work?
So those are in aluminum as well, so similar material. And
Right
they could be
here,
a
right
milled
here.
finish also, so I think we maybe do the same thing, give you the black sample.
Okay.
To compare the three. They will be very close, but we can give you the sample to
Okay.
say you've got it.
Do they come colored, or do you have to get them finished by somebody?
No, they come powder coated.
Okay. Because I'm doing some powder coating work for the city myself, and I know that sometimes you can, if you could get them all powder coated by the same group, then you wouldn't have to worry about the different colors. But I'm not sure if that's an option for you.
Yeah, we can find out, but I think they do come.
Mm-hmm.
I do think they come that way.
No, matte,
matte
correct?
black. Yeah,
Matte.
matte black.
Okay.
I do appreciate you bringing it here rather than, I know you sent a note out, but I feel like this is a better way to go about it.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they appreciate the
Yeah, that's, no,
go
that's
ahead as
fine.
well. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, next one for the factory. Alteration of windows, doors, lighting, partial demolition.
Very minor. Very minor. Did I write that on this one? I don't know what.
Everybody wants to tear something down. so
That's
it's
right.
Very, very
That's right.
minor. So
This is not the demolition of the smokestack.
no.
Oh, yes, the bar. Okay. I was like, what was I
Of
referring
a
to?
non-historic element, don't we?
Yes, I'll let Gina just jump in on this one.
Yeah, so this is one you all haven't seen yet. So this is the Jameson Theater. So Building 5 there, Amanda, if you don't mind just putting your mouse over Building 5. This is where, if you all have seen Studio 10 do a performance, this is where they have their shows. And so what we are doing a project for right now for the interior is redoing that space, basically, so that they can have a real theater. They really sort of make do in there, and they do a great job with what they've got. But I think now is the opportunity to sort of have this really sort of finish out as a great theater. So it's been really fun to work on. But as we've been working through it, there's a few minor things on the outside. Some of it's just consistency around what we're doing in other areas, and some of it is a few minor adjustments. So if we go to the next page, Amanda. So something that we're doing everywhere that we've talked to you about is there is that on the top image, the existing, all of the corrugated metal is sort of the light, sort of clear steel color. And, in previous ones, we have talked about painting that. We just want to paint this here as well to match. And then again, changing out the storefront from the clear anodized steel to match what we've done on the other ones to have the darker color. So putting in newer storefronts there. So that's predominantly what you're seeing on this first page. Go to the next one. Okay, so this one is at the back of house. So I put the pictures on the right there just so you all could familiarize yourself with where this is. This is in the back corner of the factory. This is where a lot of the trash and all of that is now. This is also where, if they're doing a play or a show, this is where they load in all their equipment. So if you look at the top, you'll see the existing. There's a door that's 6'4" wide, a double door right there, and there's a few other existing doors. What they have found out is, as they are loading in, they said it would really help us if this door was an overhead door, because that's how we can kind of get stuff in easier. And not so, we would like to do an 8-foot door that is an overhead door instead of a double door that is currently there. So that is a change. And then the only other change back here is to paint those doors the darker color to match what we're doing around the front. And so there's a photograph of this door that we're talking about replacing that you all can see.
And Gina, it looks like you're adding a pedestrian door to.
Yes, and a door next to it. Yes, that's correct. And so they have the load-up door, but then they also need a sort of man door to get into that space next to that. So that's sort of that's the main change on this back facade.
Amanda, do you have any?
I think she's still got more to go.
Oh,
There's a
she
few.
got one.
There's a
I'm
few,
sorry.
sorry.
I thought you were hesitating.
Nothing big, nothing big. Okay, so this is the bar Amanda was referencing. I don't know if many of you have looked in this
Yep,
bar when you
yep,
go out there.
yep.
So the bar itself, we put a little section on the next page. We can kind of go back and forth between these two. The next page shows you what's happening with the height. So the bar is actually down. The floor of that little house-looking structure that's in there is down a couple feet. And then the floor is up. So the bar, if you're standing at the bar, this is a tall person that we place in there. It's actually, when I stand there, I'm sort of standing right around chest level when I would be serving somebody a drink. And it's not really used anymore. And so that bar itself is not historic. That was certainly added. And so we would like to remove that bar. but then you have the recess in the floor. So what we are proposing is to infill that floor with concrete like everything else out there, so you have a level slab. And by doing that, if you're looking at this image there, the top image is showing you there's a door in that sort of little house structure on the top image, and we are talking about infilling that back with brick, since we would be filling in the floor, keeping the structure, but making that modification. And then similarly, painting the corrugated steel the color that's in the rest of it. Okay, and then as you keep going around, on the same page, if you want to go back one more page, Amanda. Okay, so what we're showing toward the bottom of this page, new light fixtures and fans. There are lights and fans out there. We would like to replace those. And in addition, the structure there is like a light gauge metal, basically, if you look up into the framing of that awning that you walk under. We just want to paint that a dark color to match the fans and the lights. And then the last page, it's a similar view. It's just showing also painting the structure. So if you look at the top and bottom, the top structure is a red, and the bottom, we just want to paint it that dark color to match everything else.
And Gina, you're keeping these storefronts and not replacing those,
We are
correct?
replacing.
You are
these.
replacing
So these would
those.
be replaced with the darker color.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
That's it? All right, Amanda, your comments?
Okay, so just to go back through really quickly. Removing the non-historic bar would be appropriate. I did have a question, though. Is this kind of creating like a mausoleum of sorts? Will it just be enclosing a little building and have it just, it's enclosed forever with no access?
It's access from the inside, so it is used from the interior.
Oh, okay.
So it is a used space. It's just not ever accessed from the outside. So
I know,
it's-
I'm colorful.
Just selling spots to be buried.
Okay, and so painting is totally appropriate as far as the corrugated metal, especially because the commission has already approved that on this project in the past, as is replacing the anodized aluminum non-historic storefronts with the new specifications that they are working on currently. As far as the new doors at the rear, typically, adding new doors would be discouraged, but this is at a lesser visible elevation, probably not visible from anywhere unless you're trying to see it. So widening that door to allow for the overhead and then adding the additional door would be appropriate. I think that's the only thing on this page.
Painting. That's it. Just
And
painting them.
painting.
Yeah.
We talked about the bar. I wondered how that door would interact. Will it not cause any problems with the door or the brick material to bring that grade
We're
up?
proposing to fill that door in.
That's right,
Yeah,
that's right.
That one's not used currently.
Okay. This is not a very visible location. You can see it's under a canopy. And so it kind of feels like it's inside, even though it is technically outside, which is why they brought it forward. I would like the commission to comment on how you would propose to infill that. I think infilling it with a panel as opposed to brick would probably be the best point of action, because you're not going to be able to match the brick anyway, unless they take the brick that they're removing from the overhead door expansion and fill it here if it happens to be similar. And then I believe that's it. Oh, the lighting fixtures, that would be fine. As they've shown, it would support the architectural character and the overall feeling of that property. Okay, thank you.
Let's take each piece of this rather than going all through the thing. So go to the first, that's just painting there, right?
In the replacing of the storefronts.
And doing what?
Replacing of the storefronts?
Oh, I see it, I
Yes,
see it, I see it, I
yes.
see it. Okay. Comments on that, Kathy?
I think it is excellent as proposed.
Susan?
I don't have any more comments.
Fine with it.
Fine.
Okay. Next page.
Leave my button on.
Overhead door being added by expanding the opening of the existing double doors and then adding a new pedestrian door to the left of that.
And everybody understands where this piece is. I've been through there many times. Any comments on that one?
The 8-foot wide door, is that a roll-up door?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a roll-up.
And the roll-up mechanism's on the outside or the inside?
Inside. It'll be on the
Inside.
inside.
Okay.
Kathy, would you like to see that specifications on what that door would look like? Okay.
I just was asking about, and it's not drawn on the outside, so I should have guessed it was on the inside.
No, that's a fair question to ask.
But, yeah, and then the gutter, the downspouts being adjusted to accommodate between the two. And then, was there a stone placard above the original door that's gone?
It's not a stone placard, but it is a sign. I don't
The
believe that
little-
one's stone.
Okay.
Right, that one above that?
Do you mean
It's
do you
not
mean the
stone.
header?
No, in the
This right
brick.
here.
Jameson
Okay.
Paulson.
It's just a applied
Okay.
sign, yeah.
I'm fine with that. I think it looks good.
Susan?
No comments.
Brian?
My comment would be, it sounds practical.
They agree with that.
Tyler?
I'm fine with all the changes. I go back to something Kathy said on our site visit a long time ago, which was, the little tracks and all the little doodads and conduit. If this place becomes devoid of these things, I think it does change the character. So things like the track, if they're not causing an issue,
Yeah.
I'd prefer to see some of that stuff just kind of left alone.
Yes.
But that's my only comment.
Okay.
Okay, I'm fine.
Okay.
Next,
Okay, next is
The bar.
The bar. So it would be removing.
which I have never seen used in all these years.
I've never seen it used. Removing the bar, raising the floor to fill in where the bar's removed, and enclosing the door with brick or other.
Okay. Kathy?
Is that like by where Mojo Taco is now, back there? Okay.
It
I've
was.
seen parents.
Yeah, it's up back towards you,
They
as you look
give
at that picture.
Mojo
So on this site
gives,
plan, it's over here.
Mojo gives kids free frozen pops. So parents sit their kids up on that bar and let them eat their pops. What would be the option of infilling the door with a material? That might be kind of nice to see a nod to the door once being there, whether it's brick from another place where you've taken it off or another material.
Okay.
I'd be open to either.
Susan?
I don't have any comments.
My comment, do you have any idea what the building's use was,
That little building?
that little building?
No, we have a photo, but I don't know if it was just like a tool shop. I don't know if you know, like, can't see like what's in it.
Do you,
Currently kitchen, yeah.
do you think that that looks like a metal door that's welded in the center? Do you think that door is original to that structure?
It doesn't look like it. We could certainly do some more looking, but it doesn't look original when you look at it.
Would it be an option, to weld it shut, to permanently close it off so that you still have the door and the visible sign of what was there before, and then just concrete, fill in that space so you don't have a hazard for someone falling in the hole?
Yeah, we could
That's a
certainly look
good
at that.
idea. Strike one for Brian.
What is that delta and floor level?
I don't know if I have it on here.
Just
Approximately, I want to say, just like 1.5 to 2 feet is approximately what it is.
Pretty good drop.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a problem with filling it in necessarily, but, I'm always trying to think of things that can be left alone, and if it's, for fear of it becoming the 70s sunken living room, I think filling it in is fine, but if it were a height that could be somewhere where people could sit around, but I'm like, what, are they going to stare at the wall? Probably doesn't make sense, so I don't have a problem. Filling in the door, whatever you want to do. Whatever everybody else likes, I'm in.
I like Brian's idea of just welding that thing shut and painting it and be done with it. This is.
I'm shocked.
I am too. I am shocked that it's coming out of my mouth. But I like that. I really do like that idea.
Okay.
And fill in the hole is fine.
And if the tenant on the inside doesn't like it, you can always skin out the inside with sheetrock. But the outside looks old.
Yeah.
Well, it shows change over time. Yes, which is very important to the guidelines. Okay,
Right.
then next page. I think we've covered. Correct?
Yes, this is just showing the paint again and the lights
Mhm.
and the
Right.
fans.
Any questions about the lights and painting?
No.
Okay, and this would be replacement of the anodized aluminum storefront and then more painting.
That's the same storefront we already looked at. It's just a closer view.
It's just a different angle.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions, any comments? All right, thank you.
Looks good,
Thank you.
okay. That's that one. Now we're to the smokestack.
And Gina's leaving, she's like, this is Alan.
Are you sitting down?
Gina's gonna get out of here while the getting's good.
Okay, so I will let Alan explain. I've got the slides here if you want to go through them.
Okay. I guess you've had a chance, everybody's seen the slides, but what we're working on in this back area under the smokestack is we've got creating these iconic spots under the water tower, these different courtyards under the smokestack is another one of those spots, right? This is all going to get new hardscape landscaping area. The carousel building is going to go back here. We see this as another really activated part of the site. And we had the smokestack inspected. I think you'll have seen that report. It's okay. There's a lot of deferred maintenance on it. However, it's made of a cold rolled steel that it's not made to last forever, right? And so what we'd like to do is while we're back here doing all of this other work, now's the time to address it. So this would have been, I forget the exact time, but we don't know for sure, probably sometime in the late 60s or 70s it was replaced previously. It's been replaced multiple times. It's part of the nature of operating the factory and venting the things that would go through the smokestack. So what we'd like to do is, while we're back here doing all this work, go on and take the opportunity to make a 50-year replacement here versus repairs that may get us just down the road a little bit.
So as part of the discussion, I did advise Alan and his colleague Benton to provide information to the commission that would substantiate the demolition criteria in the design guidelines. They did have it inspected and they had a report prepared, which I provided to you previously. We can go over those findings briefly if you'd like. But one of the things that did arise in some of the discussion is the smokestack considered historic? I believe that based on the information that's listed here, that there is some sort of photograph that indicates that it wasn't there at a certain point and then it was.
That's right.
And so I explained to Benton specifically that, the National Register nomination doesn't mention the smokestack. It was prepared in the 90s, but sometimes things gain significance over time. And it would not have been at 50 years in age in the 90s, but it's likely 50 years in age now, and that's why we want to have this conversation. So it's important for the commission to consider, okay, is this considered a contributing structure? And if so, has the applicant provided enough information to you to substantiate the demolition criteria in the guidelines document? So that would be specifically, it's lost its historic or architectural significance, that it is structurally unstable, and the cost associated with repairing it versus removing it and replacing it with something comparable would lean one more toward replacing. And I believe that's what Alan is bringing forward to you today. Do you want to go over the findings of the report briefly?
Not unless there's
Okay.
desire to go through the details. I think the main point is we could continue to complete some of this deferred maintenance and things like that. It may prolong the life a little bit, but then we will be in there either likely rebuilding this at some point in the near future. And now's the time to do it while we're about to do a lot more work back there.
I will say the report is very thorough. It does provide the information that the commission typically requests to see. And the findings are all listed here, which I don't know if you can see from where you are. I can definitely go over them if you'd like for me to, or and here's the recommendations as well. You may want to talk a little bit, Alan, about who prepared the report and why you chose them.
Yeah, so this was an industrial equipment company that did it. They have built smokestacks and other industrial equipment around the country, and so they were the most qualified to have seen this type of equipment before. Their recommendations are generally kind of cleaning, protecting from more water intrusion and things like that, coating the tank. The big risk is the age of the steel, and at some point you could have a catastrophic failure that is not, you may not see that coming. And when you get to a certain age of that steel, that's the risk. And any other key points of the report you think we need to cover, Amanda?
I don't think so. The one thing the report doesn't include is your findings on the cost analysis. Is
Yeah.
that something you want to talk about a little bit?
They're comparable. I mean, the repairs are pretty similar in cost to what it would take to create a replica. Replica is a little more expensive, but it's to the point where it would make sense.
Does it serve any purpose to the factory
Nothing.
now or projected?
No. As an identifier, we do.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, we feel like under the water tower, under the smokestack, how we name it,
All
I don't
right,
know.
okay.
But we do
fine.
see that as a unique characteristic of the
Okay.
site.
Just like the water tower itself.
Yeah, I
Right.
got you. All right, Kathy?
I'm surprised to hear that the cost to replicate it is, it's an equal between the
Not
two. I
equal,
would have
but
thought
it's
to
a-
repair it would be much, much higher.
The high-level repairs were 100 to 150,000, and replacements probably 150 to 200.
Well, I commend the group for wanting to address this now. Certainly now, before the site becomes more active. Is there a steel color option or a metal choice or?
We haven't
Like
really
the
gotten that
windows?
far. We wanted to have this conversation first to make sure there were no big red flags, and then we'll go back to we have talked about the way it's created now as riveted sections that were put together. We want to replicate that as best we can. So that's, as far as colors, or it'll likely be steel. There's a stainless option that would be a longer life. But we haven't gotten to that level of detail yet.
Okay, I would support it as proposed.
Kathy? Susan, excuse me.
It's not quite the same as the tower. I do appreciate that you want to keep that effect of having that smokestack. So I would be okay with demolishing it and replacing it.
Brian?
I'm noticing this is on page 18, so it actually sits on a steel foundation frame.
That's right.
And would what's rebuilt go back on something? What I'm thinking for in the future, if that falls, you've got some major damage to something.
Yeah, the risk is to other buildings.
There are guy wires
That's
currently
right.
that are on it.
The new design probably would not have the guy wires associated with it, so that is a risk. We didn't talk about the concern could be if pieces or parts or this fell, then damage is much more than just to the smokestack.
So the new one actually the replacement would be freestanding and wouldn't require any guy wire.
That's right. That's
Well, I would support with my fellow members on the demolition and replacement.
Nothing to add.
I'm absolutely fine.
Okay.
And the perfect on the timing. And thank you for the detailed report. That's That's as detailed as we've ever seen, that I remember.
Yes, it's very, very helpful. I was very pleased with that. One thing I do want to ask, just to clarify, is the support because it has lesser significance on the site? Or is it more because it appears that if it were to fall, that it would be catastrophic to the site? Or both?
I think both for me.
Both, plus it makes sense to do it at this time, while you've got all this other work going on.
Okay.
Yeah, and the discussion for, I guess, future things like this. The water tower, different from this, is in the front. It really is freestanding in itself. It seems like an element itself, and the smokestack, while it's tall and kind of monumental, somewhat, not as much as the water tower. It's like, well, when does a kitchen hood vent become that? Like, what's the height or scale? And so, to me, I'm like, I keep wondering, where's that line start and stop? Because there may be one that's half this size, and is it even less significant, or one
And
that's a
Tyler, I think you
taller?
read my mind. It's because I want it to be clear for, the purposes of this discussion that it's determining significance, and that's really important. Significance of the water tower has been just embraced by the community in a lot of ways for years now, and certainly by the applicant as the new owner. So I appreciate you sharing that and having that more transparent on the record.
Just my opinion. I'm not speaking for
No.
everybody, but
Well, I mean,
Anything?
the applicant could have just wanted demolition and not replacement, so
Yeah, that's
That's a-
exactly
that's a
why I
great
asked
point.
that first question.
commending you guys for seeing the value in that.
Yes, they're certainly good stewards of the site.
Okay, anything else?
No. Good news today, huh?
Thank you all.
Good for us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Tyler said adjourn, second by Susan. Stan, we're done. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
If you don't want the paper.